Happy Monday, everybody. It's Monday, y'all. It's Monday. I don't know about you, but I am a little slow going this morning. So I am late, a few minutes late. Let me just double check. Let me know if you're here. If you're here, let me know in the comments below. And let me know if you can hear me okay. Excited to be here with you again for this 20-day challenge, really just a monthly February challenge. Every day, Monday through Friday, I'll be here at 10 a.m. on my Facebook page, Eastern Time, doing some painting and sharing painting with all of you. Super excited to be doing that. And just something maybe a little bit different, every single day. Last week we did some minis at the end, and then I did a few different paintings throughout the week. So if you're here, let me know who's here, who's tuning in. I think this is all working. Different paintings throughout. Okay. All right. Cool. We are working. Okay, so reminder, if this is the first one that you are seeing, the first Facebook Live that you're seeing, that also this month, every week, I'm giving away a free copy of a DVD of my art lessons. To one subscriber on my email list. If you're a subscriber, if you get emails from me. So if you're unsure, go and check your inbox. I send out emails every week. If you're on the list, you should have an email in your inbox for something. Art Life School members, you're automatically on the list, of course. And I'm going to be giving one of these away each week. And there's 5 lessons on here. And you can go to artlifewithkelly.com and get signed up on the email list if you're not already. There's lots of freebies there. Also, if you're interested in learning how to paint, you can sign up for the oil painting for beginners masterclass. This is a $500 value masterclass that walks you through how to get started in oils and how to get started in general with painting. You could also grab that for acrylic painting as well. So there's lots of good, high quality content in that masterclass. And I gift that to artists to give back and to help people get started on their journey, because I know how difficult that can be and how overwhelming that can be as a beginner, since I was a beginner once too. Don't forget. And then also there's a free 5-day still life painting challenge if you like still life. And so that's an option too. So you'll also get lots of very valuable educational materials just by signing up for the email list, plus a chance to win that DVD every week. All right, everybody. Okay, so today what I thought I would talk about, part of the theme of this challenge has been, what if you are struggling to, for whatever reason, could be any reason at all. What if you are struggling to kind of either start a new habit of painting and build a consistent habit with painting, or what if you are struggling just to kind of get back in the saddle or at the easel and get back into a regular routine of painting and start feeling inspired again, start feeling motivated again with your art making process. There's just so many different reasons. This can happen, for me, it typically happens automatically after holidays and all of that, but this can happen throughout the year too. Maybe we go through a health crisis, maybe we move, or, maybe we lose a loved one. Just all kinds of different reasons. Life, happens, and all the kinds of different things that can kind of throw us off of our game and off of our regular routine. So I've just kind of been sharing each day, like different ways that we can try to kind of counteract that, right? Like activate ourselves and start taking action again And there's a lot of different, maybe, tactics that you can try, different strategies. And some strategies are really going to work for some people and then for others, they won't. So last week, one of the strategies I mentioned was like doing the miniatures Thursday and Friday. We did those little teeny tiny paintings. And so going small sometimes can relieve the pressure and it gets some wins underneath your belt. We talked about the winner effect on Thursday and Friday, how if you can feel like you're getting a win, then that kind of boosts us up psychologically, and it gives us more motivation to show up and keep winning, and getting these wins, so to speak, these successes, whatever word resonates most with you. And so that's one way that we can do that. We can make it fun. We can, even kind of silly in a way. We can go small. That's another way. And so this week, but that won't always work for some people, because some people might be like, oh, I'm not going to do that. I can't be silly. That's not going to feel like a win. I can't paint a 2-inch painting and feel like it's a win. Like, you might have that voice inside. Maybe you struggle with perfectionism. Maybe you just feel like it's not a big enough effort. And so why bother doing that? So there's a habit hack, that has been well known for quite some time, which says just start with 2 minutes on whatever new habit you're trying to develop. Well, for a lot of people, they don't even think that that's going to work, so they won't even try that, right? So a lot of times if this is feeling like you might struggle with perfectionism. Okay, so this is another way that I would recommend, how I'm going to walk you through this week. This is another way I would recommend doing it, where you can still have, feel like, oh, I am pursuing something serious here, and I am going to end up with an end result that I'm more satisfied with, but in a way that also still has less pressure, right? So sometimes showing up and completing a new work of art each day just feels like way too much pressure, and so you won't do it, right? And then also maybe the opposite, like, well, completing a 2-inch or a 5-inch painting or something like painting a simple orange also isn't satisfying that need in you to, do something maybe greater or grander or whatever. So you kind of get stuck in this space with those two options of, it's too much pressure to complete a new work of art every day. And then also the other option that I walked you through last week is like, it's not enough of a challenge, or doesn't feel like it counts, maybe, right? Anybody relate to that? And so maybe it just doesn't feel like a win for you, so that's not going to work for you. So the way I'm going to do it this week, the option, if you find yourself kind of stuck in that limbo, right, between those two choices, and like, I know one of those are working for me, Kel. The other option I'm going to share with you today and over the next couple of days is go bigger and go for something that feels more challenging to you and more serious to you, but don't put the pressure on to complete it in one day. Like, do it over stages, right? Now, I do recommend that you try to complete at least one piece a week to get back into the swing of things. 2 is even better, but just start with 1. But you want to decide, like, how much time are you going to give to this project, this painting each day? And you're going to take baby steps, but you're going to show up consistently each day and work on that painting, right? So that's what I'm going to be doing probably over the next few days, is showing you. I'm going to be working on a painting over a course of 2 or 3 days here on my Facebook page. And also, I hope that that'll be beneficial, because I know not everybody paints alla prima or wants to paint wet into wet alla prima. Not everybody maybe has the time to sit down and finish a work of art in one day's sitting. So I'm hoping that this will also be beneficial to those of you who are in that situation. Some artists also just like to work slower, or that's just like their natural way of working, is working on something a bit slower throughout the week. So again, this is not about right or wrong, good or bad, or anything like that. It's just finding like, what is the process that's going to work for you? Okay, so that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to start a more classical, traditional setup. I've got some things pulled here that I'm going to play with. So today is mostly going to be me, walking you through like how I make decisions on how to set something up, how I come up with an idea, a still life idea based on the props that I have to work with. Does that sound good? And let me know, I know I see some people here, so let me know if this resonates with any of you, like what I just shared about feeling, the two options that we've talked about so far doesn't really work for me. Like, does this process I'm talking about now, working on a piece over the course of a few days or throughout the week, does this process feel, how are you feeling about that? Does that feel like less pressure? Does it feel more comfortable to you? If you're somebody maybe that has maybe like is a super spontaneous person, this is probably not going to speak to you very much. If you maybe have ADHD or ADD or something, this probably won't speak to you very much. You're probably somebody that needs to maybe work through it quickly. I don't know. So, but let me know if you're here, if it is speaking to you, and we'll get started. So I've just pulled some props right now on the floor here. And I will get started with my size and placement. Marion's saying yes. And again, none of us are really the same all the time. We go through seasons. We ebb and we flow. Sometimes we're ebbing, sometimes we're flowing, and we need different things at different times. And I think it's important to be aware of that and be flexible. So just try to be aware and identify like, well, where do I think I am right now? Do I think I'm going to work better working on something a little bit each day? Whether that's 30 minutes or an hour, like maybe day one, you can get your setup done or figure out what you want to paint that week. So I've got some simple fruits, and I've just pulled some props that just was speaking to me off of the shelf. And I just thought, I'll just play with these. Now, here's the other thing I do want to throw out though. You don't want to take too much time. So you want to know like how much time you have to invest so that you do walk away having accomplished something with your studio time, right? So there's a principle called Parkinson's law, which basically states that, things grow to fill the space, right? So the container that it's in. So whatever amount of time you have, you want to make sure that you get something accomplished with that amount of time. So if you have 30 minutes, maybe what you're looking to accomplish with that 30 minutes is deciding on what you want to paint, right? And being ready to go the next day, right? Or the next time you get to the easel. If it's an hour, maybe it's 30 minutes to decide what I'm going to paint, and then 30 minutes to tone my canvas and get my size and placement, sort of your underpainting started, right? So be aware of that too. You don't want to spend all week just trying to figure out what to paint. Okay. Because what I know for certain is that the more paintings that you can complete, even if it is over like completing one over a course of a few days, still the more paintings you can complete, the faster you will learn and the faster you will grow. So be careful with this kind of process. Thinking like, oh, I have all the time in the world, I can take all month to do one painting. You can, you have that choice, you have that option. And what I know from experience is that that's not really going to maximize your learning and your growth in the way that I think you want it to. Okay, so be careful of getting caught in the masterpiece trap as well, which a lot of perfectionists do get caught there in that trap. All right, so I don't know why I'm not seeing any comments here. Sorry, let me just refresh my feed and see if anything new shows up. Oh gosh, see, look, there's all kinds of comments. Sorry about that, guys. No, it's not reversed. No, it's fine. Thank you for checking. Okay. Wow, sorry. It just wasn't showing up for me. Hi, Dinah. Hi, Marty. Hi, Cindy Renner. Hi, Aphrodite. Good morning. Good morning, Vicki Davidson from Virginia. Marianne Hanvey, good morning. Yay, yay, yay. Okay, awesome. Gail says, yes, I love painting over 2 to 3 sessions. Great. Kathy Kapler says, yes, it helps to study each part. And Aphrodite says, I like both. Yeah, me too. I tend to be more on the side of I really like finishing something wet into wet, but it's also taken me a really long time to be able to do that, right? To be able to build up that amount of speed and also focus and stamina. Good morning, Trish. And then Dinah says, I paint in one sitting, and when I'm excited about the layout or subject, and sometimes it takes me a couple of sessions. Totally. Sometimes it does depend too, like how complex is the subject, or if you struggled, with that subject, you might need more than one session as well. And that's okay. I think it's really important for us to be flexible and, not like judge ourselves for, thinking that there's some rule that we have to do it a certain way, all that kind of nonsensical crap. All right. Okay, so I pulled, this is one of my favorite blue and white jars. I'm stepping on something here. And I have another blue and white jar. Actually, I bought this jar in Connecticut. It has made it all the way back in Connecticut. Maybe I'm going to paint this one just for that reason. I don't know if I'm going to do the lid or not, but I bought this jar, no kidding you guys, 17 years ago here in Connecticut while I was in art school at an antique shop, which I plan to drive up and visit, this week. And I just loved it. And it was one of my first kind of splurge purchases. It was I think it was like $15 or $20. Let's say it was $17 since I bought it 17 years ago. And at the time for me, that was such a huge splurge. I felt like I was taking such a risk buying this prop, not even knowing if I could actually paint it. Isn't that funny? But it wasn't funny at the time. I really felt like I was taking a big risk by investing in this. But I loved this vase so much. It just really called to me. And, you have to listen to that. You have to listen to your gut, to your intuition, follow what you love, especially right now with all like the fear-based thinking that's going on in the world. I think it's even more important that you protect your heart from that stuff. And, when you love something, go for it. If you can all find a way, even if it's like super expensive, if it's really speaking to you, really try to, do whatever you can, obviously legally, to make it work, right? Save up your money, maybe you can find a way to sell something if it feels like a costly investment. And then sometimes we just have to take the leap of faith, right? And do the thing or buy the thing, even if we don't know how it's going to work out or how we can afford it at the time. So for me, and that always pays off. If you know that it's really something that's calling you, that's speaking to you, it will pay off in the end result. So I'm going to go with that blue and white jar. And I've really been craving painting red. So I'm going to see if I can get red and blue to work. I've got lemons down here as well. Let me see what I can do with this fold here. I'm going to do an eye level still life. Maybe we'll have some dark grapes over here. That is a huge bunch of grapes. I don't have to paint it that big though. Sometimes these grapes stiffen up as they're in the fridge. So you may need to pull some grapes off, or maybe even kind of try to coerce the bunch down a little bit. Okay. So I always say in every still life setup, I'm looking for a light object, a color, a light, a color, a dark, and then a desaturated color. Okay. And sometimes, sometimes you need more than one color. But basically I'm looking for those four elements. A light, a bright, a dark, and a dull is what one of my teachers, Greg Hoyts, used to call it. Light, bright, dark, and dull. So bright means a color. It doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a bright color, but something that's more colorful. So, we've got rich color with the red. We do have some lighter value coming in with the vase there, and with like the ginger jar lid. I can kind of play with, am I going to include that? Do I want to have it on the ginger jar? I was thinking maybe I might want to have something coming out of the jar. I can do orange here, maybe some orange fruits, or I can go with lemon. Obviously, lemon is going to give me more of a red, yellow, blue color combination, the primary colors. So those can be my options there. If I want to get more light out of a piece of fruit, I can simply, kind of cut that fruit open to reveal, more of a light shape or a lighter value, maybe less color, less bright color, but more of a light value. And same thing goes for orange. You can open up an orange, and you can either do it by hand or you can cut them open. But sometimes it's really neat, those old Dutch still life paintings where they would have like the peeled fruits. So you can also do peeled fruit instead of cut fruit. That's another option. And so you can open that up, and the rind of the orange, can kind of create a new design or a different design. This could be flowers too, doesn't have to be fruit. But that would bring in, a lighter value and less bright color. So that could be an option if you want to go with oranges. I think in this case with the red cloth, the orange is maybe going to clash a little bit, is my hesitation with the orange color. If this was a different color, even if it was like a golden color, or perhaps something like this, but that has pattern on it, and then you've got pattern and pattern, so I wouldn't do that. Especially that pattern is very bold, very striking. This pattern is a little more subdued, so you could potentially do something like that instead of the red. But again, I think it's going to be a lot of pattern and pattern. So I try to watch out for that too, make sure I don't have too many things that have patterns on it. You could also go the route of, getting rid of the red and, picking either a dull, darker red-orange, like a burnt sand background, or like a blue-green background. And that would be more of a complementary color instead of the red, blue, and yellow triad, right? So you can maybe see how instead of red, if I go for blue-green and maybe a white cloth, that orange, kind of makes a little bit more sense in that case. I hope this is helpful, just kind of walking you through today, just thought process behind setting something up. I do think still life is probably the hardest one of the hardest subjects to do on your own, because you have to learn how to arrange the objects yourself. Whereas like if you are a landscape artist or a plein air artist, you can go out and you can just kind of hunt and look for something that looks and feels right already, that looks composed already. Obviously, it's still challenging, right? Still learning curve both ways. But I do think that, learning how to arrange things together can be one of the challenging things, which is why, in the Art Life School, we have so much content in there about how to do that, right? So, okay. So I think what I'm going to do is go for the lemon, because I am kind of I really wanted to paint that rich red. So again, you have to kind of go with like what your heart is saying and find a way to make that work. So, and I don't think I need both. I don't know that I need both both lemons. And I don't know necessarily that we need to have the lemon that is, has the cut fruit in order to use, I don't think we have to have this one in there in order to use this one, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, I'm going to try with something coming out of the vase instead of the top on the vase. I'm thinking this might be nice to do kind of a L-shaped design. Now I could grab something that's going to bring in maybe more light and more neutral color, because there's a lot of color. Sorry, you're probably hearing all of my leaves and stuff going everywhere. I have a lot of color here. Let me get this a little more straight on for you guys. And this isn't that bright of a value, right, on the ginger jar. So my thought, and I don't want to pull in necessarily a white plate, I don't think. Now I could do something like this as well, where maybe I kind of prop up the ginger jar lid, almost like a little bowl, or just have that little bowl there and maybe ditch the cut lemon. That could be an option. But somehow there's got to be something in here that kind of brings in some more flow and kind of connects these things together. And that's where things like foliage, I might try this Luminera, this money plant, so these kind of iridescent silver dollars, because that's bringing in kind of a neutral white and also kind of a different texture. And you have to watch out for your logical mind going, why did these things go together? Or saying they don't go together. This doesn't make any logical sense. So you have to kind of watch out for that as well. You're really thinking about things in terms of like shapes and colors. It's not like you would walk into somebody's house and see this arrangement sitting there. Now, if you just can't get past the logical mind, to be able to overcome that and paint this anyway, then yeah, you probably do want to figure out like a theme or something like that. If you can't kind of override that logical part of your brain that's going, why is Luminera with a lemon? So I've had that experience with students in the past where, they've really gotten hung up on that. And for me, it's all about, the relationships between things, the colors, the values, the shapes, the textural contrasts. I'm just thinking about it in terms of design. It just has to kind of generally look like it feels natural enough or makes enough sense. But if you just can't overcome that part of your mind, then maybe, and again, it's not a bad thing. It's just that's where you're at and that's who you are. So you may want to just actually come up with more of a theme for your painting, like, oh, this is a kitchen theme, and so it has all these kitchen items in it rather than a ginger jar mixed with lemons, right? So I kind of think of it more like, the Dutch still life painters often would have very elaborate, hard props mixed with fruits and sometimes even like lobsters. And the overall theme, art historians say, was to show like the abundance of the household or the wealth of the family, that they could afford all these, they could afford lobsters and oysters and tulips and, all the things. And so all these things would be mixed together. And maybe even throw in like a butterfly or a fly or things like that on the fruit. Okay, so I'm going to stand back and look at this. You have to be excited enough about it to want to paint. Hey, Kathy, thank you, Kathy, for chiming in. She says, my logical brain always says that. Yeah. So, and again, I would say don't try to force yourself to be different. Just go with what works for you, Like last Thursday and Friday, we had our live workshop inside the Art Life School. Both of those paintings, I would say, are good examples of a theme painting, where they were both like food Valentine's Day theme paintings. And so everything, kind of was based around that. We did the French macarons and tea. And then, throwing in the pink or red ribbon to try to bring something else in. So the only thing I would say about themes is just make sure you're thinking about it artistically as well. So totally do a theme. Doing, a theme that makes sense to you, but you still have to approach it in terms of design, right? So, you need shape variety, you need value variety, you need color variety, okay? And I also say you need textural variety, okay? So, value contrast, color contrast, shape contrasts in your design, and textural contrast. Those 4 contrasts you want to have in every still life. And then you have to have some sense of organization and this is composition, right? Like what is the composition? What is the basic framework for the composition? You've got to have those 4 contrasts. Otherwise your painting will maybe feel a little bit lackluster or a little dull, like something's missing. And then you have to have a foundation in which all of that is making sense and arranged in some kind of organized, composed manner. It's why they call it composition, because you are composing all those elements on your picture. Okay. So this is where it can feel overwhelming sometimes, especially if you're a beginner or if you haven't trained a lot in composition yet, which I highly recommend you do if that's a weak spot for you, as it was for me too, so don't worry. But it could be something as simple as this is an L shape, so I'm going to make a tall vertical L here. I'm going to have this kind of taller vertical axis, or maybe it's a T, where I have a long vertical here, and then I have, objects or elements kind of going across the picture plane, right? So adding in the little lemon there, I can see, okay, that's going to make a longer, horizontal axis. When you're doing this, you want to be thinking about what size painting am I going to put this on, a panoramic panel, like a 6x12 or 10x20, that's going to be much more elongated. You can't really do a long vertical axis on a 6x12 or 12x24, right? You're limited. It's the panoramic is shorter and wider. So common sense, right? But sometimes we're not thinking common sense whenever we're trying to arrange stuff. It's like, duh, happens to all of us. Okay. So it's key to think about that too. Like, you don't want to set up some amazing arrangement and then you go to your canvas supply and you don't have a canvas that's going to, fit that you don't have a format size, a canvas size that's going to make sense with what you set up. Okay. Basically the point, this kind of design, like an L shape or a T shape, that's a very general, common design. It's been used throughout the centuries. Okay. L shape or like, T shape. This has been used, and you can flip that any way. It could be an upside down T. It could be a T that's in the middle, a T that's off to the left, right? It could be an a backwards L, right? So it's just a simple framework that you can really turn any direction, and use. You can have a shorter, an L on its side where the vertical axis is shorter and the L is longer, right? So I like to use those letters. Edgar Payne's book on plein air painting shows these letters for plein air painting, and you can totally use them in your still life too. Of course, a circle, you can do an O, or a circle, you can do a C shape, you can do an S curve design, you can do a Z, right? Like a zigzag, right? Or an N, right? How you can set up a whole still life based on these very simple frameworks, right? So be careful about getting too literal about it, but it's a good idea to have some place to start. A triangle is always, you really can't go wrong with a circle or a triangle. If you think about it, circles and triangles they're a whole shape, right? So there's no start and end to them. So the whole idea is to kind of keep the eye in the picture longer and kind of keep everything connected. Okay, so you can't go wrong with any of those. I'd say if you're ever unsure where to start with a circle, a triangle, or an L shape. Okay, very, very basic. Three options if you're confused or overwhelmed about composition. Yay, Pam Engel, I'm so glad that this is helpful to you. I always wonder about the little branch on the still life setups. I'm late, she says. Yeah, so what we have to understand is all of this is going to just be paint on a canvas. And you're looking at like, what are the filled spaces? Are there enough negative spaces, enough space in between things? And then also like, is there enough flow and connection, right? We have all these separate objects in still life. So how can we find a way to bring in flow? Sometimes we can bring in flow and connection through reflected lights and maybe halation of light, the unseen, seeing things like reflected light here. But for example, like there's negative space here, but is that too much negative space? Sometimes there's two kind of pits that people can sometimes fall into. They fill the whole canvas with stuff and everything is like touching, and there's no negative space at all. It's like, wow, it's like an explosion of objects on the canvas and there's like no room to breathe anywhere. And then the opposite can happen too, where you have too much empty space, or, you have a lot of negative space, but you haven't really created some way for things to kind of move the eye from one object to the next object. So it's like there's this vast Grand Canyon between, you could even do that, like take this out and just that alone, the eye is going to connect, the yellow to the yellow, right? But without that in there, this is so far away, the eye just may not want to make that jump in your painting, and it might feel a little awkward, right? So this is, say one option. You could play with the idea of like, is that enough? I'm going to try to paint this and see if it's enough. If it already doesn't feel like enough to you, you can throw in something like this, which minimizes the negative space. Maybe we don't need that little guy at that point. You could also take something that you already have in the picture and make it smaller, like grapes as well. That could be an option where maybe you have, grapes that kind of fill the space too. so there's different things that you can do with that. This is having all these objects be small on this side and these larger. It can either bring in some interest and some contrast between the scale of big versus really little. And it can also, you ride that line of like, it could also be potentially feeling too heavy on one side and too light on the other, if that makes sense. So again, sometimes you actually have to start painting the painting to maybe see where mistakes have been made in your composition. And that's okay, but obviously you want to get better, build your skill set in your composition and get better at that part of it so that you don't run into so many problems to solve. And that's where I also say painting smaller really helped me in the early days, because I was getting so tired of investing 12 hours into a painting only to find out like that my composition sucked, or right. But that's how I used to talk to myself anyway. Oh gosh, my composition sucked. Well, that was a waste of time. But really, the more objective way to state that would have been like, oh, I didn't see this flaw in my composition, or that, the proportions between the objects weren't really that pleasing, or there wasn't enough connection and flow between the objects. And so that's where I still vote in favor of trying to paint smaller at the beginning, even if it's doing quick studies or quick sketches, thumbnail sketches before you go into the big painting. That's why people do that too. But it's why I got so much better when I decided I don't care if it's a small painting. I want to get better at my composition. I want to get better at creating form and creating light and creating believable shadow. And I want to go through that start to finish process faster so that I learn quicker, so that I learn from my mistakes faster. So that's what I started doing. I put my masterpiece making, masterpiece loving ego self, on the shelf for a while. So don't worry, if we want to paint a big painting one day again, we'll paint a big painting. We'll make a big masterpiece. It's fine, but for now, like, it's taking too much time. And again, back to Parkinson's law. Parkinson's law says that things will grow to fill the amount of space that you give them, right? Look at your house. If you have a storage unit, right? The storage unit is probably pretty full. So as human beings, we fill the time that we give ourselves and we fill the space that we give ourselves. And so it's important, if you're really wanting to learn and grow in your artwork, to try to constrict the amount of time that you're taking to learn, right? That's why, like in Art Life School, we have short, 30-minute lessons each week to try to, help you, for me to try to accommodate that for you, where, it's not taking 2 hours to watch a lesson, right? So you're getting all the meat and potatoes that you need, all the foundational principles that you need in 30 minutes. And then hopefully you're taking that and then, going from start to finish in a painting. Anyways, Parkinson's law. Make sure you're not taking too much time whenever you're working this way is basically the point. Still try to limit the amount of time that you're spending doing certain steps. So setting something up would be the first step. If you're going to paint a still life, give yourself a time limit, whether that's an hour or 30 minutes, depends on how much time you have. I would say you definitely don't need more than an hour. Obviously here I've been explaining everything and talking it out. I would say try to shoot for 30 minutes. Also, the more setups you set up, the better you're going to get at that too, right? Because you're going to learn, right? You're going to learn as you go along. You're going to set something up. You're going to paint it. Then you go, how could I like that idea, but it feels like something was missing over here. Or how could I make this better next time? How can I kind of reiterate this idea, but maybe, change it up a bit, right? So you start getting more creative. And you start problem solving more whenever you do things like this. So I would say aim for 30 minutes if you're doing a still life setup so that you don't get lost in the weeds. Pick something and go with it, you have to commit at some point. There's so many, yes, it's like we can kind of get caught up in like, but what if there's a better idea? Oh, what if I can come up with a better composition? I know this feeling, right? Like feeling like, if I commit to this, is it right? Is it good enough? It is good enough. Hashtag done is better than perfect, right? So aim for 30 minutes. If you need a little more buffer time, give yourself up to an hour to set something up. And then I break the painting down into 3 stages, right? And so I would say give yourself an hour for each stage. If you feel like you're a slower painter, that's immediately making you feel like, inside. Give yourself, maybe you have 2 hours you can give to each stage. But I break the paintings down into 3 stages. Stage 1 is the start. That's where you tone. You get your size and placement. You get your background color. You get your shadow shapes in. Okay, stage 2, right? This is what I call the build. Okay, this is where you're building the local color and the light and the highlights on each object, period. Okay, stage 3, this is like the finishes and the flourishes, right? So you're looking to create your transitions from your light into your shadow. You are looking for your reflected lights or light passing through objects. If you have glass or grapes or something that's kind of translucent, like a leaf or petal. Basically, you're looking for light flow. How can I let the lights flow more and connect more in stage 3? You're looking for any finishing details. So like in stage 2, I would start this pattern, right? But I would be looking for finishing details or adjustments that need to be made on the ginger jar base. Do I need more pattern? Do I need less? Do I need to find value variations in that pattern? So stage 3 is really about, making those final adjustments, looking for the flow and connection. Also, looking for what needs more impact for this to be called done. The question I love most to ask myself is, how little can I do to make this painting look finished? And you might think, why that question? That seems such a cop-out question or such a lazy question. No, it's not lazy. It is the beautiful solution, right? So sometimes we think that the more we do or the more we put in, the better the painting will get. No. This is not necessarily true, my friends. So you're looking for what is the most, really less is more, right? Like what is the least amount that I can put in and have this, be a gorgeous, beautiful painting, right? This is forcing you to think differently. This not forcing, but it guides you to think differently whenever you ask a question like that. And it guides you to simplify. It guides you to prioritize, like what are the top priorities here? Like what are the most important things for me to put in on this ginger jar or on this bunch of grapes, right? Not everything is important to include. Okay, so it just helps you see differently as an artist. All right, so enough about all of that. Let me see if there's any questions or comments. I hope this is resonating with all of you. Yay, Vicki says, awesome lesson, thank you. Yay, I'm so glad. I know that this is, I wanted to talk about this week because I know it's a question. These are questions that come up a lot inside the Art Life School. So Pam Ingle says that's a law of physics. Ha. A vacuum will always be filled. Yes, exactly. Nature abhors a vacuum, right? So time limits, time constraints on your creative time. I know as creatives, we feel like, no, I don't want to have any time constraints. But we need constraints to actually make us more creative, believe it or not. Try it, test it out. Don't believe me, test it out for yourself. You'll be amazed at what you can do whenever you give yourself constraints. You can give yourself constraints on the colors on your palette. That's why so many people love what they're calling now the Zorn palette, but so many artists love limited palettes for that reason. Many artists get trained, and I was trained this way too, where you just paint with red, blue, yellow, white, and black. Right. And so many artists, they choose to always paint that way because it's a constraint, right? It constrains, your options. So you don't have decision fatigue. You're not overwhelmed. You know how to use that palette. You know how to use those colors backwards and forwards. Like it becomes a part of your system, a part of your psyche, right? Because of those constraints. Okay. All right, Natalia, I'm glad that this is speaking to you. Good advice, she says. Awesome, awesome. Okay, cool. Yay, are we painting this? Yes, I'm gonna start this painting tomorrow. Okay, you can, I challenge you to set up your own still life based on the information today. Even if you don't wind up painting it, go and practice that. Take the elements that I've given you today and just find things around your house. If you're like, I don't have still life props. Yes, you do. You live somewhere, right? They may not be antique and Oriental, Asian, French, whatever. But you have cups, you have plates in your kitchen. I'm sure, so don't give me that BS. Don't cop out on this. It could be if you don't like this kind of still life, maybe you set up a floral. Just take the information here and do that. Do a practice setup. Tomorrow, yes, Gail, I will take a photo of this and post it in the comments tomorrow. Tomorrow I am going to be painting this. I'm thinking probably on an 11 by 14, because if I paint it on an 8 by 10, I probably will get done with the painting during the demo. And the whole point is to kind of show you, how I would space that out over a few sittings. Okay. And that's also going to help those of you who have questions about painting on a dry painting. It's not going to look like an alla prima painting, just so you know. It's not possible for it to look like an alla prima painting if you're painting it in 3 sessions and the paint is drying in between. So you have to be aware of that too. Like different processes create different looks, different stylistic looks in paintings. Okay, so take this info today. I'm challenging all of you to go and play and set up your own still life today. Take a photo of your still life, post it in the comments below on this video. Ask me any questions that you might have, like, maybe it's just like, Kelly, do you think this still life works? Do you have any advice for me on it? That's fine too. You can ask for feedback. Art Life School members, I'm going to see you this afternoon for our closing celebration call for the Valentine's Day workshop, and also answering any of your questions or giving you any feedback that you might need on your work today live on Zoom. This is the one opportunity each month that you have to talk with me one-on-one on Zoom. So don't miss that. Make sure you're there for that. It's at 2 p.m. Eastern, 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern. Okay, so make sure that you grab the link inside the Facebook group and join me there. Lucy says, more bird paintings might have to wait a bit. This gets me excited about still life again. Yay, I love it. And your bird paintings are beautiful, Lucy. All right, awesome. Maria Donnelly says, this looks like a wonderful setup for us to paint. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I've been craving getting back to more of that classic old world still life. Maria Donnelly also says, I found an old watering can this morning. I took it home. Yay. Awesome. Okay, great, everybody. All right, so Art Life School members, I'll see you at 2 p.m. Eastern for our Q&A support call. If any questions come to mind, put them in the notes on your phone or jot them down so that you don't forget before our call. So be prepared to maximize that opportunity today and to connect with your fellow artists. If you are not an Art Life School member, you are invited to join us. If you want to join an incredible community of artists led by Mwa, yours personally, and get support throughout the year, get support each month, get new lessons every single month like these that we're doing here, and so much more. So you can go to artlifewithkelly.com and find out information about that and get signed up for the membership. Okay, much love, everybody. Bye for now.